Welcome. My name is Michael Klenk, and I'm happy to see you here today in this recorded lecture to introduce the companies and innovation minor at TU Delft. Now, unfortunately, I cannot be there today live, so this is a pre-recorded lecture. And if you have any questions that come up during the presentation, here's my email address, m.b.o.t.klenk@TU Delft. So drop me a line if you want to discuss anything about this minor. But first, let's go and see what this is all about, companies and innovation. And I want to start with this symbol. And you might seen it before. After all, you're now almost third-year students at TU Delft. And indeed, this is the flame of Prometheus, and it's part of our logo at TU Delft. You see it here at the bottom left of the screen. And a few of you might know it. Those that don't, I'll tell you the story. Prometheus is a mythical figure of the Greek sagas, Greek mythology, ancient Greek mythology. And Prometheus is said to have brought fire to human beings. He's a champion of humanity and a champion of science and art and of engineering. And he brought fire to humanity, even though the Greek gods, Zeus and the others, forbid it. And he ended up pretty in a bad spot because he was punished by the gods to have his liver eaten by an eagle for eternity, for his innovative act of bringing fire to humanity. Now, this is a really bad fate that befalls an innovator, and I hope it doesn't happen to any of you. And I'm not showing it to you because of that. I'm showing it to you because innovation, basically, since we have this myth of Prometheus, is often thought to be about this mythical one-person, perhaps two-person entrepreneur that comes up with a great idea and pushes it through alone. So this kind of genius idea, this myth of this one person coming up with a revolutionary idea that changes the world. Now, in many cases, of course, that has happened, and we know of great innovators in history, primarily because there appear to be these single individual greats that changed the world almost single-handedly, like Prometheus did. But really, the vast majority of innovation today, the vast majority of important innovations that really keep the economy going, keep our lives getting easier, healthier, safer in many aspects, these types of innovation happen in companies, in established structures, in networks, in groups of people, and they're not always what they now often called in a fashionable term disruptive innovations, but there might be marginal innovations in many cases. Sometimes there are big leaps and disruptive innovations, but the important point is they happen in networks, in social networks of people. And this is what the innovation and company minor is focusing on. Now, if you think about innovation in a company, that brings with it unique challenges. Because first, even if you are a genius like Prometheus, you're not there on your own. You have to deal with other people. You are embedded in a social hierarchy, in a company hierarchy, and you have to make do with the resources and the deadlines and the structure that is given to you. You have to work in a team, and you have to work within the policies and the guidelines and the aims determined by a company. Now, sometimes you might be able to influence the company's goals, its strategy, and select appropriate innovations that meet the strategy's end. But often that is not the case. And anyway, it is an interesting question how to select a strategy for a company that is already established. Now, these challenges, which primarily have to do with this embedded nature of working in an established company, this is what we want to address in this minor. And what makes it really interesting, both from a practical perspective, but also from an academic perspective. Because one of the further unique challenges is that because you start in an established organization, think of massive companies sometimes like VW, one of the greatest car makers in the world, largest car makers, or Shell in the Netherlands, or Philips. You can imagine how massive their impact is on society and how massive their impact could be if they come up with a new product innovation or a service innovation. And as an innovation manager, you might have to think through these unique challenges that come because you're part of such a large company. Now, there are unique challenges, but also, of course, create opportunities as being part of such a large organization and innovating within a company. You might have far greater resources for innovating. Think about market research, think about R&D budgets, think about technical development capabilities, think about expertise that is part of the company already that you can draw on in coming up with a new innovation. So thinking about innovation within established companies brings these interesting, great opportunities. Now, for you in your third year of the bachelor, it might also be a really realistic, pragmatic option, because some of you might be entrepreneurs and thinking about starting up their own company. And many will work within established companies. So it's really interesting to understand, how do established companies work? How do you orientate yourself within a company? And how do the innovative processes work within such companies? So because this is a realistic and also attractive option for engineers, I think this is a great minor to get, dip your toes into these environments and learn about them from an academic perspective with a view to the practical application. And with that comes a bunch of transferable skills, because innovation at its heart really affects the whole palette of business administration processes. You have to understand finance, you have to understand product development and marketing, some legal aspects, and some things that we will place a specific focus on are ethical and safety and security aspects, which, be that you at one point set up your own company, will be handy in understanding how to really set up a company and go from startup to a more firmer organization, or if you actually work within an organization, that you just understand how do these different innovation, strategy setting, and finance processes, how do they work and tie in together? So that's the company's innovation minor. So our focus will specifically be on these product innovations, beginning, I said, service innovations. And so far, we have really focused on product innovations, and this is where we keep the focus within existing companies. So you might call that corporate entrepreneurship, but it's really a different challenge from leaving TU Delft, setting up your own company with your friend, and then thinking, for example, about seed funding, really creating an idea from scratch, attracting funders. This is entrepreneurship, and there's another minor focusing on that. And here we focus on driving innovation in larger teams in an existing company. Now, our approach is what excites me the most about this minor, because we focus on what we call multidimensional analysis. So we look at strategy, management, finance, ethics, as well as safety and risk in thinking about the innovation process, where you go from the beginnings of a new idea that is also sparked by analyzing the market and customer needs, but perhaps also moral and ethical needs, or you spot safety or risk that you might curb or mitigate with a new product. So you come up with ideas, and ideally you come up with a lot of ideas, and these ideas get funneled and channeled through a specific innovation process until the end, where you end up with a new product development. And we will look at this process through the lens of a very broad field that encompasses, as I said, strategy, management, finance, ethics, safety, and risk. And I will later say something about what makes this approach so special and so unique, especially for TU Delft and a VTI department. Now, As I said, I think this is a very fitting minor for anyone who will at some point have contact basically with the business world. So this will be the vast majority of you. And it's especially interesting, I think, if you really want to understand how to use your skills that you already gained in your engineering studies to foster new innovations in these companies. So we are welcoming enterprising engineering students in our minor. And in the end, once you completed the course, you will actually develop something. We call that a business model canvas. So basically that is a chart that focuses on one specific product innovation. And it tells you about, and you will work out what the strengths are of that innovation, the weaknesses, the opportunities. And that will also be written down in an extensive business plan. So these are the end deliverables that you will produce in group work as part of the minor. So I already said that there's something I think really exciting and special about this minor. And that has to do with it not being an ordinary innovation course. Now, what do I mean by that? I put you here a slide with an example of a so-called stage gate process. So stage gate processes are very familiar, very basic tools to visualize and to think about how to structure an innovation process. And to the left, you see at stage 1, the ideation stage. So think about sitting down and coming up with as many ideas as you can. So what could we do? What could be a new cool product, a useful and ethical, a safe product, a product that makes money that we can think about. And this is the ideation stage. And then you pass a first gate where you select some ideas and to go further, and some ideas get kicked out. And then at stage 2, for example, you come up with a concept of these different ideas. You work them out in some greater detail. There's another quality gate where, again, some concepts, some ideas are kicked out based on new criteria, and then other ideas get pushed forward for a development that goes on to testing and then to launch, where the actual product, perhaps if you're Steve Jobs or the new Apple boss, Tim Cook, you present it on a big stage and here you go, you have your product launch. Now, what's interesting about this, or really ordinary, quite the contrary, is or are the criteria that are being used to evaluate these different ideas and go from one stage to the next. For example, just pick out this gate. When you take an ordinary innovation course, what people teach you and what you get taught, what you learn is, of course, this whole process. But most of the time, the focus is really narrow on criteria such as profitability and the law. So how do we go from ideation, stage 1, to stage 5, launch? Well, the quality criteria very often are narrowly conceived, and it consists of economic factors only, such as profit, and perhaps some legal factors, so that we stay within the law. And this is how we, how we judge whether an innovation is a good innovation. But really, you can ask yourself, especially given what I said earlier, when we think about companies having such a major effect on society, and we see that right now, for example, in the crisis that we're currently facing, with companies taking political decisions and deciding where to source their products, where to offer their products for service, you really see that these companies, the decisions they make and the product decisions they make have a undeniable societal impact. And you can ask yourself, well, shouldn't we account for that as members and guardians of these companies? Shouldn't we think about how our products affect society in a more encompassing way, not just focused on profit and law? Well, this is what we offer and what I might call the VTI, the Value Technology Innovation, which is part of the TPM faculty where this course is based. This is our approach. It's a multidimensional approach that recognizes economic factors. Of course, we need to be profitable and we need to, stay alive as a company for sure. So we have economic factors, but also social factors, such as the impacts on security of people and the safety of people. We can think about risks and many different ways to conceptualize risks. And finally, ethical factors. Perhaps we don't only need to think about the products we need, but also the products we should be developing. Perhaps we can somehow contribute and alleviate problems in society through ethical innovation management. So this is the VTI approach. And really, if you want to, and Delft, I myself, of course, I'm a researcher at TU Delft. I did business administration and I worked as a consultant. And then I did philosophy and studied also psychology. And so with my own research, my own background very much encompasses this multidimensional perspective. And TU Delft is really a unique place in the world where you can pursue research like that and have colleagues that pursue similar research really at the intersection of these interesting fields. And I think this is what makes these companies and innovation minors unique amongst different innovation courses. And if you want to learn about how to manage the innovation process and analyze it in a multidimensional way, I think the Innovation and Companies minor is for you. Now, very concretely, how does the course look like? Or the minor, you could say, let's start with the roof, because we have a companies and innovation integration course. So that course partly teaches new concepts, but also is really intended to help you understand how these different parts of the course, which I'll introduce in a minute, how they fit together and how they can be applied in your project, in your product innovation that you will be focusing on during the course. So in the first part of the year, you basically think about, you'll be busy with this first stage of the course where you come up with an idea, analyze the strengths, the weaknesses, and the potential for your idea. And in the second part of the course, in the second quarter next year, you will develop that idea and put it into a full-blown business plan. Now, this will be the roof of our minor. What are its pillars? In the first quarter, you'll have a strategic management game that teaches you in a very interactive way, in a very hands-on way, the fundamentals of strategic management, which you basically need to set direction and understand how companies set direction for doing business, which gives you criteria for where to look for in coming up with new product innovations. This is then complemented by a second course where we'll have a deep dive into financial management. A big part of innovation management, of course, or coming up with a new product innovation, is thinking through the financial aspects. What are the costs? What are the expected profits? And how can we think about this really and analyze it in a really thorough and well-tested way? How can we, for example, compile then ultimately the financial aspects of the business plan? And where does the money come from? How do you, deal with budgeting within companies? This is financial management. And then to take, not only these economic lenses in the first quarter, we take the social lens where we focus on the responsible management of risk and safety. Now, at this point, you will have some idea, a first idea about what kind of product you want to develop. You can already start thinking about its, you'll have, of course, thought about the strategic fit of the product, the financial components of it. And now we take this multidimensional perspective where we also think about how it might harbor risks and how it might affect the safety of shareholders and stakeholders for the product. Now, this is the first quarter, and the second quarter, we really go on and develop that into a full-fledged business plan. The first component, the first course here is innovation management. That teaches you again in a very thorough and detailed way the different aspects of innovation management and how to integrate these different aspects: strategy, finance, ethics, risk, and safety, and also some aspects of product development proper. Now, I should say that we are currently thinking about whether we might swap financial management in innovation management. So this is one possibility that we haven't decided yet. Both courses will definitely be part of the minor, but perhaps we will have innovation management in the first quarter, which would be great, and then financial management in the second quarter. But you'll definitely hear about that by the time you register for the course. Now, the final course that completes the fundamentals of innovation management is then how technology innovation hangs together with ethical aspects. This is really a major focus as well, because as I said, as a company or as a product manager and innovation manager in a company, your actions really have consequences on your clients and larger parts of society. And this course really helps you think through about how to evaluate these social consequences and derive implications for your own work as an innovation manager. Okay. So in the first quarter, we have an even study load. We have 15 ECTS in the first quarter and then 15 ECTS in the second quarter. And that really culminates. So each individual course has their own assignments. And then there's a kind of a fundamental or culminating assignment in the business plan in the second quarter. Okay, so this is really rough and ready, an introduction of the course. And I want to give you some examples of people's and students' product innovations from previous years to give you an idea of the real cool and creative work that people have been doing and that you might be doing, and perhaps you take some inspiration from that. So the first one I wanted to talk about is the H-Wing, and this is an innovation that students thought about in cooperation or basically tailored to the company UK Sailmakers. UK Sailmakers is a end user sail maker with about 50 locations around the world. So a medium-sized business, but they have technological expertise. And this is exactly what the H-Wing group focused on, because they wanted to bring a top-notch technology that is used in round the world racing, for example, the BMW round the world race, that they wanted to use that and bring it and make it available to the commercial sailor market. So far, that isn't possible because of technological and especially price limitations. So they wanted to make this consumer product, turn this into a consumer product. So this is a real product. You see a 3D rendering on the left. Just one of the pictures I picked from their business plan. And so this is one product innovation from 2 years ago. We have another mob, a Robomob in collaboration with Dyson. The idea here is basically that you look at existing products that Dyson offers, many of which are now automatic cleaning devices for private people at home. And perhaps you have one at home or your parents have one. And of course, there's still a challenge with stairs. So here we have an incremental innovation where we think that there's surely a market need for consumers to have a product that can even take this further step and clean across different levels of the house. So the team came up with detailed technical specifications and a plan to make a Robomob more versatile and able to go upstairs to do the cleaning everywhere in the house. Okay, so this is one part, of course, the product innovation that consists of a technical plan of how to execute this, and then a financial plan and a market need analysis that also tells you, well, Dyson, this would be a really interesting innovation for you to have and for you to produce. This is what it would cost to produce, and this is how you would do it. So this really goes from ideation, from the first stage of the innovation process, to the in sketching, basically away until the product launch. Now, second one is really inspired by also an ethical concern. It's called Ismart, and it's basically a little device that you put on a microscope. Now, often microscopes are used to analyze biological tissue for tissue analysis, to detect illnesses and sicknesses in humans. Think about, for example, blood analysis. And right now, it really relies on the medical personnel to optically recognize markers and traces or signals of a specific sickness. Think of sickle cell anemia, and that's a specific blood illness that the team identified as being a large problem and also being difficult to analyze and see really through the microscope so far. Now, if you're familiar with machine learning, then you might see that this is, or basically artificial intelligence approaches to classification. You can recognize that this classification problem, looking at an image and seeing whether it really is or isn't a certain type of, or indicative of a certain type of illness, that really lends itself to the use of automated and assisted classification. And this is what the Ismart team worked out. And they basically designed this little add-on for existing commercial use microscopes, a software that could recognize the illness and basically make it visible for the person looking through the microscope to be better able at detecting that stuff. So that's a really cool product, and they propose to partner up and develop this within Carl Zeiss, one of the, or the leading lens maker for microscopes. Okay, two final ones, just very brief. In the Netherlands, of course, very famous. Everyone is cycling, and though Dutch people, of course, manage incredibly well to somehow avoid conflicts and collisions, even though everything is so crowded. In other countries, and also in the Netherlands, of course, there's still a lot of accidents because drivers of cars just simply overlook bicyclists. And the Pride Cycle idea was to have signals where you want to take a left or a right turn projected onto the street, especially at night. So it's easier for the car behind you to see where you're turning and when you're turning. And that would, of course, also serve an important societal and safety goal because it would increase the safety of cyclists without increasing the risk to anyone else. And that is an interesting cooperation between LG, and you might know LG because they produce home projectors or home cinemas. And so they have an interesting technology that you perhaps can use that the team proposed to appropriate and use for this new product. Really an innovation that goes, takes the existing technology into a new market. So that's an interesting strategic decision here. And then finally, the Fitbit, obviously partnering with Fitbit, where you also use a technology that is already there for an existing market, people interested in monitoring and improving their health. And you take it to perhaps a more moral concern with helping people with dementia, for example, that might sometimes get lost. So people, when they get dementia and they don't remember really where they are, they sometimes wander out of their home and get lost and don't find a way home again. And the Fitbit could really be used with GPS to alert a caretaker that the person has left the premises and is perhaps wandering somewhere about. So this might also improve security for the users. On the other hand, of course, it also has an interesting ethical aspect, because in a way, this Fitbit is reminiscent and reminds us of being a prisoner in your own home, if you really take it or have a very pessimistic interpretation of it. So here with this product, it was also really interesting and important to shed a light on these ethical aspects as well. which are really also focused in this minor. Okay, so these are really cool examples. I still remember them when we were doing the course. This was from 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. And it's really fun, and perhaps gives you an interpretation, an idea and inspiration for things that you could pursue as part of the minor. Now, I want you to meet the lecturers for the first quarter. Strategic management, starting on the left, is basically maintained, or the person responsible for it is Dr. Geerten van der Kaar. So he's the one who devises the exams and the assignments, and he had, I think, the last year 2 assistant teachers that really did a wonderful job, as well together with Geerten, in delivering an interactive and really inspiring and interesting learning experience, and really was really highly rated, this course. So Geerten van der Kaar. Then we have Alexandrina Rajeva. She's now developing the financial management course and will be leading the module next year. She took her PhD from Rotterdam and is an expert in finance, and will give you insights into these aspects of innovation management. Then yet another aspect taught by Professor Dr. Genser-Greniers, an international expert in safety and security sciences, and he will teach responsible management of risk and safety. Interestingly, with one of the books that he has himself written. So here you really also have a worldwide expert delivering a lecture on their own expertise. And then we have Dr. Caroline van Noonen. She's also from the risk and safety section, and she will also be doing the integration course. So in the first quarter, she will be leading the business model canvas, help you with forming groups and coming up with ideas to eventually develop the central product idea that you will be developing throughout the minor. So in the second quarter, you'll meet me for the Technology, Innovation and Ethics in Companies course. Then Dr. Nikos Pahos, who will lead the innovation management. He also has a background in that area, in management and business, and also had a wonderful course evaluation last year. So you can be really excited about this course. And then you will stay with Dr. Caroline van Noonen for the integration course, and then you'll finish up working on the business plan in the second quarter. Okay. I mentioned evaluations a couple of times. The course is really overall, the minor is overall really well evaluated. And I just wanted to give you some impressions. Obviously, these pictures with group work in person were before the pandemic. Interestingly, we really managed very well during the pandemic when we had only online lectures and online interactions. And still, what students said that the practical application of the material was really nice. And there were many good group interactions. So in many courses, and especially for the integration course, you'll form a group with about 4 to 5 other students, and you will develop this product innovation together, really focusing or kind of working as if you would be in an innovation management team at a company, so that we really model that situation. That, of course, sometimes brings challenges in group interaction, but it's also really instructive. And it's really fun to come up with, at the end of this minor, to have developed a challenging and really brought to life a challenging and daring idea. So this is what students really appreciate the course. The individual courses are really well evaluated so far. And what's good is that students evaluate positively how we bring together these different aspects. So far from having just 5 subjects or 6 subjects, one after the other, we're really focusing on showing how these different subjects and modules relate and how they really figure in the VTI approach to innovation management. And a big part of that is the integration course, where you will develop this hands-on example of a business plan. Okay, So these are just some quick student impressions. I'm really excited for this year or for the next year to get this course and the minor started again. I'm excited because I see with my fellow model managers that there's a lot of enthusiasm and eagerness to make this a great minor and again a great learning experience for students. And it's really fun to interact with you guys and to see what interesting ideas you come up with, and to challenge you a bit about the different aspects that we can focus on when thinking about new products, and then see how you cope with these challenges and come up with really well-tested, well thought out and creative, fun ideas. So I hope this answered some questions, that it sparked your interest in joining the minor. And as I said, this is a pre-recorded lecture because I cannot be there live today. So if you have any questions about the minor in general or specific courses, please contact me at my email address. If you don't see it here, then just head on to the minor page on the TU Delft website. There you see my contact details as well. And of course, feel free to reach out to the individual lectures as well, individually, if you have a specific question about their course. So what do you find important about your course? What will we teach? How will the assignments be? Insofar as you cannot find that on CourseBase already, I really encourage you to reach out and have a conversation. We're looking forward to hearing from you. Yeah, perhaps see you next year. Take care.